Iran held its presidential election today, and millions turned out to vote on what's come down to a tough fight between hardliner Ahmadinejad and a moderate challenger who's energized the youth and the women's vote in that country. As it stands right now, both candidates are claiming victory. Here's what President Obama said about the elections earlier today.
We are excited to see what appears to be a robust debate taking place in Iran. And obviously, after the speech that I made in Cairo, we tried to send a clear message that we think there is the possibility of change, whoever ends up winning the election in Iran. The fact that there's been a robust debate hopefully will help advance our ability to engage them in new ways. All right? Thank you, guys.
So is President Obama bringing change to Iran and the greater Middle East? Reza Aslan is a contributor to thedailybeast.com and author of the book, How to Win a Cosmic War. Reza, just tell me, sir, what do you see happening in terms of the relationship between the words of Barack Obama in Cairo the other day and what's been happening in Lebanon and what may happen today and tomorrow in Iran?
Well, it's made a difference. Of course it's made a difference. I mean, Barack Obama has really changed the dialogue, the tenor of that region. And there is an understanding, particularly in Iran, that perhaps there can be a new way forward between the U.S. and Iran. But I'll tell you, the most important thing that Obama did, both in the Iran elections and the elections in Lebanon, was to keep his mouth shut. There were no comments about we stand with the Iranian people, we stand for the democratic forces, etc. The kinds of stuff that you would hear from Bush, which only worsens the situation in Iran. Obama was smart enough to realize, I don't want to be an issue in this campaign, and it's worked. And in many ways, Ahmadinejad, who would have run on an anti-American platform, on a national security platform, if you will, has had that taken out from under him.
Well, let's take a listen to the president's words in Cairo. I think it was an important speech. I want your view, and I want to hear particularly what individuals heard in the cafes of the Middle East when they heard these words. Reza.
For many years, Iran has defined itself in part by its opposition to my country. And there is, in fact, a tumultuous history between us. In the middle of the Cold War, the United States played a role in the overthrow of a democratically elected Iranian government. Since the Islamic Revolution, Iran has played a role in acts of hostage-taking and violence against U.S. troops and civilians. This history is well known. Rather than remain trapped in the past, I've made it clear to Iran's leaders and people that my country is prepared to move forward. The question now is not what Iran is against, but rather what future it wants to build.
Reza, what good does speaking the truth do? And he has spoken in terms of our relationship with Iran, due to our relationship with Iran.
You know, he mentioned the CIA coup of 1953, which most Americans don't know anything about, but which I got to tell you is like the core event, the event of the 20th century as far as Iranians are concerned. It's their revolutionary war, civil war, all wrapped up into a single thing. And to hear a president even mention it, let alone acknowledge it in that way, had a huge effect in the cafes in Iran. Let's face it, what Iranians want, and this has been proven over and over again. Just yesterday, a poll came out from Terror Free Tomorrow showing 77% of Iranians wanting to open up relations with the United States. This is not just about sort of a better international relationship with America. It's about Iran's own domestic situation. As you know, the economy in Iran is on the verge of collapse. You've got 26% inflation rate, 13% unemployment rate. They need America in a way that they haven't before. And it seems like for the first time in many, many years, both sides, both Iran and America, are ready. In the 90s, Iran wanted to talk to America. America wasn't ready.
Reza, I worry about us facing a situation that could be horrendous, which is to have to choose between living with a bomb in the hands of the Iranian mullahs, or, a nuclear bomb, or going to war with them in a way that causes hatred for another 1,000 years, not just a decade or two.
Neither of those are likely. Neither of those are likely scenarios.
How so?
Well, as the IAEA itself showed, in 2003, Iran stopped its weapons program. That was a year before Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, 2 years actually, before Ahmadinejad was elected. And I think that in a sense, Iran wants nuclear power. They want, a civilian nuclear program. And I think even the Obama administration has recognized there's nothing to be done about that. But Iran is a long ways from developing a weapons program. A weapons program, by the way, that is predicated on a sense of fear and a sense of threat, which Obama has taken away. I mean, Obama has said in no uncertain terms, we have no interest in a military engagement in Iran. The military option is off the table, which again has played a huge role in these elections because Ahmadinejad can't play the national security card. He can't say...
Well, wait a minute. I'm getting a disconnect. We're going to have another voice on this in a couple of shows from now or pretty soon because people who care about Israel, and I've talked to a lot of people out here on the West Coast who do, and I've talked to people back east about it. Americans who watch this issue are afraid, and they're not just Netanyahu types or Likudniks on the far right, are afraid that the government of Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. You say it's not.
Israel has been saying that Iran is a year away from nuclear weapons for 10 years. So at a certain point, we're going to have to start questioning Israel's intelligence and perhaps trust our own CIA, which has said that Iran is many, many, many years away from developing a nuclear weapon. But more importantly, as we speak right now, you and I, Israel has an untold number of nuclear weapons pointed at Tehran and a government that has threatened on numerous occasions, Netanyahu, while running for office, that he would use those weapons in a preemptive way. Look, I'll be honest with you.
Preemptive way. You have just used double talk. No Israeli has ever talked about using a nuclear weapon for an offensive purpose.
That's absolutely not right. In fact, Benny Morris wrote quite a popular op-ed about it in the New York Times a few months ago. Benny Morris, the historian and thinker in Israel, but also Netanyahu himself talked about it repeatedly. That those options are going to be on the table. Look, I'm just telling you that from an Iranian perspective, Iran feels threatened by Israel as much as Israel feels threatened by Iran.
Okay, let me just tell you something. Israel will never use a nuclear weapon in an offensive first strike situation because they'd lose their number one ally, us.
Of course they wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't.
Right.
It's all
well,
talk.
then why talk about it?
Because it's talk in the same way that Iran is all talk. This is for a domestic consumption. You know how politics works, Chris.
Well, if I were living in Israel right now,
votes.
I would take it quite to heart that me or my kids or all of us would end up the target zone for Ahmadinejad the minute he has his finger on that button.
First of all, Ahmadinejad doesn't even have the national security clearance to even look at Iran's nuclear portfolio, let alone make any decisions about it. The president doesn't have national security briefings in that regard. But second of all, Iran, by all accounts, is so far away from the possibility of weaponizing its program that the best way to make sure that it never happens is to engage Iran now. I think Obama's speech in Cairo, going back to where we started, was brilliant.
Look,
in that
I hope
regard.
you're right. I would love your optimism to be the case. I hope it's closer to the truth than I think it is. But thank you coming on, Reza. You know, you grew up in that country. You come from there. I hope you're right. Reza Aslan from the Daily Beast. By the way, I love the Daily Beast. Thank you for joining us tonight.